ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to Her Majesty's Royal Palace and Fortress, better known as... This afternoon's tour, I'm going to take you through 900 years of history. 50 minutes. Area of 18 and a half acres. But how did it all begin? We've got to go back to the year 1066. William of Normandy defeated King Harold at the Battle of Hastings. William was brought to London, and on Christmas Day of that year in Westminster Abbey, he proclaimed himself King William I of England. For the next 12 years his men went around England and very often had to fight their newly conquered Saxon subjects. That's what they called the English in those days. They were called the Saxons. And the French were called the Normans. Nobody liked the Normans. The king decided he returned to the corner of the old Roman wall because the Romans had been here 1,000 years before the Normans. On top of the old Roman fort he built the White Tower, also known as the Norman Keep. Around that fortress, successive monarchs continued to build and improve its defences. These became known as the inner and the outer, although we're a small group, and it's very noisy today, especially with these helicopters going up and down. In one grand chorus to make sure that you're listening to me. How many towers in the Tower of London? 13. 13! Well, that was a waste of time. Good afternoon! 13 on the inner wall, 6 on the outer wall, 1 in the middle, 20! There were a few more. Some were bombed out, some were burnt out, some were never built. There's a green area that goes all the way around the outside. This used to be the moat. Excavated in the reign of King Edward I by the Bishop of Ely. Now the Bishop of Ely was a very religious man. Probably that's why he was a bishop to its present level. He then used it as a parade. Well, what's been used for many things. I'm sure you all know that the tower was used as a prison. Well, that's only part of its history. Where that big shop stands outside, there was another tower there, and it took the name the Lion Tower. As far back as the 13th century, kings and queens that used to visit our royalty here in England, they would bring wild animals with them as gifts. Animals we'd never seen before. Lions, leopards, tigers, porcupines. From Norway came the big white polar bear. We used to put a collar around its neck, tie it to a chain, let it go into the River Thames, where it would catch its own salmon. It was a fresh river in those days. From Africa came the elephant. We give it lots of gin and lots of meat, and it died. We hadn't seen an elephant before, we had no idea what to do with it. Now in 1842 these animals were taken from the Tower of London to Regent's Park, and that's how Regent's Park Zoo became established. May I add, not the original animals, as one lady once asked me.
Oh my God.
Now, can you see that scaffolding up there? Just straight ahead.
Yeah.
Normally I would advise you go straight across the road, but today of course you can't do that. So if you want to go to Tower Hill, you go down the ramp, under the subway, up the other side, so just up in that corner you'll find 12 posts about this big, joined with a chain, and that is Tower Hill. Brought from the Tower of London up onto Tower Hill and beheaded. The first was Simon Sudbury, the Archbishop of Canterbury. It was himself and his treasurer Lord Hales that were trying to impose a poll tax upon the people of England. How many English people here? Now come on, there should be 5. Come on, put your hands up. Let's have a count. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There you are, you see. 7. It's getting better. We're all very shy people, you know. Remember the poll tax? Margaret Thatcher, quite a few years ago now, when she was the Prime Minister, decided everyone over the age of 18 living in one house should pay a tax. Up to that time, it was the householder who paid the tax. That idea went up like a lead balloon. We thought to look back in history to 1381. Once more we were at war with France. There was no money in the coffers. Anyone had the privilege of breathing, they were being charged 4 pennies. And the people from Kent and Essex, these are 2 counties next door to the Tower of London, they did not like this tax. They marched on London, they came down that hill. It was called the Peasants' Revolt, not the revolting peasants. Halfway up that hill there was a big gate with a fence coming down to the Lion Tower. There would have been someone like myself guarding that gate. We were being charged 4 pennies. We did not like this tax. What do you think we did? Come on. What do you think we did?
Revolted.
No, we were very loyal. We
You paid.
we let them in. 3,000 past, never saw a thing. Get in there. You got hold of the Archbishop of Canterbury and his treasurer Lord Hales, dragged them along here, took them onto the hill and chopped their heads off. End of tax.
It's that easy, is it?
Is that easy?
Can we apply that for today now?
Yeah.
Where are you from?
Switzerland.
You never have any trouble like that, do you? They all seem to be very rich and very happy people in Switzerland. Are you? I can see you're very happy. Are you very rich? Yeah? Oh. Rich enough to come to London, eh? The middle tower. Why is it called the middle tower?
It's in the middle.
It's in the middle. You don't need me anymore. You just walk around, read the signs. It used to stand in the middle of the moat. Can you see it? The green area. When we walk through here, look above you, you will see a portcullis, also known as a drop gate. This one is over 400 years old, but we the Yeoman Warders do not like to stand underneath it. Because we know the rope that holds it up. It's also over 400. Most of this is true. I'm doing very well so far. There are 3 holes in that archway. Can't see them yet. They're called murder holes. I wonder how many people noticed there was 3 holes in that archway. The idea being that if the gateway was attacked by fire, then water could be poured down the chutes. And hopefully this would extinguish the fire. So now take a walk into the outer ward. Murder holes. Come on, all the way around, please. Come on. That's it. Oh, a bit of sunshine. Taking photographs from the side, please tell me. Keep the stomach in for 5 seconds. Come on. Oh, come on. The area we are now standing in is called the outer wall. That is to say we're in between the outer and the inner Bailey walls. Now the wall behind you in parts 25 feet thick. The wall behind me 60 feet high. To your left you have Mint Street, so named because it was here that all the gold and the silver coins of the realm were minted, until 1810. It was then decided that the Royal Mint should be taken from the Tower of London and was placed to the other side of Tower Hill. It now forms the casemates, which means dwellings on the wall, where my colleagues, the Yeoman Warders and families now reside. Now if you turn around you'll see another archway, and this is called the Royal Entrance or Sally Port. The kings and queens of England who used to reside or visit the Tower of London for obvious reasons. They did not like to travel through the dark, dangerous, narrow streets of the city. They preferred to use the River Thames on the Royal Barge. They would alight on the Queen's Steps, walk across the wharf, across their own special drawbridge into the Tower of London via this royal entrance. We know it's here that Queen Anne Boleyn, the second wife of King Henry VIII, entered the tower. We think, of course, that His Majesty assembled his court here. He probably stepped forward, put his arms around the girl, and said he would love her for the rest of her life. That wasn't very long, was it? 1,000 days and a cannon shot. Behind me is the bell tower. Why is it called the bell tower? Got a bell. This tower is not open to the public. So I'll tell you about some of the prisoners that were held here. Sir Thomas More, a very good friend of King Henry VIII. Lord Chancellor of England, Speaker of the House of Commons, was imprisoned in the lower chamber. Now you might think the lower chamber is down here. It isn't. As we walk through the tower, we're going to go up another 30 feet. So the lower chamber is up there, where these arrow slits are, also known as arrow loops. At the same time, his friend John Fisher, the Bishop of Rochester, was in the upper chamber. That's where the modern windows are, right at the very top. They were held here because they would not recognise King Henry VIII as the supreme head of the church in England. After 14 months of miserable imprisonment, the king signed their death warrant. They were taken up onto Tower Hill and beheaded. James Scott, the Duke of Monmouth, he was the eldest son of Charles II's 13 illegitimate children. Now you know why the king's nickname was the Merry Monarch. When the king died, the Duke thought that he had the right to rule the kingdom. He formed an army in the West Country, but was defeated at the Battle of Sedgemoor, brought here for one night, but the rest of the family had been imprisoned. The next day taken up onto Tower Hill, where it is reported the bloodiest execution ever seen on English soil. The executioner was a man named Jack Ketch. He was a part-time drunk, a part-time butcher, and a part-time executioner. On this particular day, he was all three in one. Now can you imagine that? A drunken man trying to take another man's head off. It took 5 blows of the axe before the head came away from the body, but still was hanging there by the sinews. So he took out his butcher's knife and he cut through these sinews until the head dropped to the ground. Spoilt the whole day. It was a day off for the people of London. There were acrobats there, jugglers, just like that. Can you hear the noise out there? That's what it would have been like on the day of an execution. You know, there would have been gambling and all sorts going on. He was so drunk. 5 blows of the axe. There was blood and bone going everywhere. It upset the children upset the parents surged forward to try and get their hands onto Jack Ketch. Fortunately for Jack, unfortunately for others, he survived for another day. Then the authorities realised he was a royal person. They needed a portrait of the man. So they brought the head and the body back into the Tower of London. The royal surgeon was sent for. It was his task to stitch the 2 parts back together so the artist could make a painting of the man. When people see this painting today, they say how pale the man looked. As one of my friends said, it doesn't look very lifelike. We are now going to take a walk down Water Lane to Traitor's Gate.